Okay, this is the January 2010 F581. The question is, discuss whether indirect taxes on petrol and diesel fuel in the UK should be reduced. Now, this is essentially the same as the effectiveness of a tax question. Discuss whether indirect taxes on petrol and diesel fuel are effective or are the most effective solution to market failures, but you're flipping some of the arguments around. So if you agree with this statement, you think that taxes are ineffective, and you are talking about the reasons why. One of the reasons given in the case study is this one: the companies are unable to compete out of business and jobs lost. But the other essential argument that would apply would be inelastic demand. So you're saying that a tax is ineffective when there's inelastic demand, and that will give you a graph to draw on that one. On the disagree side, pollution and a negative externality, well, that's the justification for the tax in the first place, in that it increases price and reduces supply. Even better, if we use the negative externality diagram here, it will reduce government revenue, which could be spent on public education, healthcare, etc. So again, we've got a nice link there to what the government revenue could be spent for. It depends upon how significant the reduction is. Perhaps could reinvest the government revenue in public transport. So we've got a good hypothecation argument there for AO4. I think a better way to evaluate might be to look at other government interventions. So perhaps regulation could be an alternative policy here. But it's nice to see there's an accurate plan before the essay was started. So it starts off: an indirect tax is a form of tax imposed by the government on goods and services in order to discourage consumption. We have a definition there. An argument towards agreeing that indirect tax on fuel should be reduced is to increase competitiveness in the fuel market by preventing companies from going out of business, which would result in better quality service and good for consumers. For example, delivery times for goods being reduced. So we've got a bit of AO2 here in the case 4, and potentially delivery times being reduced or jobs being created could be talked about in terms of positive externalities, that the benefits to other parts of the economy may be greater. As supply shifts to the right from S to S1, this results in a decrease in price. So we've got the analysis of the reduction in tax here, the decrease in price, but the key part is the increase in quantity that's coming here. People will be able to afford to consume. What we need to do is link this back to the benefit for businesses. So businesses can increase output, linked back to the point just made about it creating jobs. Alongside this, the prevention of firms going out of business means that there is a provision of more jobs and reduction in unemployment. This will provide an increase for the government expenditure through income tax and also through the knock-on effect of more people with disposable income. So again, we're looking at the benefits here. Spent on other goods and services. However, a point that disagrees with the reduction in fuel is the negative externality of air pollution caused by congestion and overconsumption of cars. So we've got a key statement there about overconsumption, and we've got the graph here. Because the private cost of fuel is below the social cost, this results in people taking advantage and over-consuming. We need a little bit more accuracy referring to this graph. If you'll notice here, the price is going up and the quantity is going down. That is the solution, and this would be the justification for the tax. So you would refer back to this as the tax increases the price and reduces the quantity. So what we need is just a little bit more explanation of what's going on here. So the use of an extra label to talk about the external cost. And so because the private cost of the price is below the social cost, this is due to the external cost not being paid by the first party. So just a little bit of accuracy there. This is what people take as advantage in over consuming. So we've got that there's with reference again to the market failure. We could just also maybe highlight the welfare loss, just for a bit of accuracy. Then goes on to analyse which increases external costs, like pollution to the third parties. We've got some application there which lead to health-related issue developing long term, so increasing the indirect taxes, not only with discouraged consumption. So we've got justification for it, but it also means that the extra revenue generated is able to pay the external costs shown in the graph. So we've got a reference to the graph here, but we've also got a little bit of AO4 here in terms of a justification, so that the revenue can pay for these external costs. Similarly, the revenue the government gains from this indirect tax is able to be hypothecated in public goods such as public transport. Kind of the same point we've got up here, so kind of that links the AO4 there. The quality and experience for consumers, and furthermore reducing the negative externalities associated with this fuel. If we're going to use the hypothecated argument, it will be even better if we refer to price elasticity of demand becoming more elastic, or the XAD becoming more elastic, linked in with the increase in the number of substitutes, but also the closeness of them. Ultimately, it would be most beneficial for the environment and people for indirect tax on fuel in the UK to not be reduced. So we've got a key judgment there for AO4. However, it depends upon how significant the reduction is and whether it effectively discourages overconsumption. Also, where the excess revenue generated for the government is spent, it would be most effective being spent on public transport to further encourage cars' modal switch, increasing utility for this further, reducing the negative externalities associated with fuel. So there's a little bit more AO4 there, but if this AO4 used elasticities, it would be a lot better. Here we've got kind of a recap or a summary of things that have already been analysed, so there's no additional marks for this. I think a better way would be to look at something else like regulation and make a quick comparison with a different way of intervening. So if it's inelastic demand that's the problem, potentially regulating or having a ban or a quota may be more effective. Or you could talk about information provision as well as the tax to make it more effective, because then people will understand what the tax is for and why they are being taxed.